I rise this afternoon to speak on an issue that for too long we've known about and done little to nothing to address either side of the aisle. And that issue is our growing trade inequity. Continually puts American manufacturers at a disadvantage and has cost too many Americans their jobs. I introduced bipartisan legislation with my colleague, Representative Walter Jones, H.R. 2927. So we got Republicans on this bill, we got Democrats on this bill. It offered one path towards equalizing our growing trade inequity. But instead of a thoughtful debate, we're again confronted by misinformation, and in this case, an entirely unfounded and false fear of new taxes being imposed. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to state for the record that H.R. 2927, the Border Tax Equity Act, has a singular mission: to stop the offshoring of American jobs. It does not impose a value-added tax. It is geared to fight a value-added tax imposed by foreign nations on American-made products. The Border Tax Equity Act stands up against foreign export subsidies and trade barriers that offshore U.S. jobs. Who's talking about this? When are we going to begin to protect American jobs? We can have all of the job creation, all of the stimulus. If we don't go to the heart of the issue, we're going to lose any manufacturing edge that we have. We are not a service job country. We need to have agrarian, we need to have service, and we need to have manufacturing jobs. Otherwise, God forbid, if we ever went to war, we'd have to buy our tanks from China right now. We have dismantled our manufacturing base. We have destroyed the infrastructure of manufacturing in this country. Let me make it clear. When I say export subsidies, what I'm talking about is our trade partners, our allies, many of them, and some not our allies, give rebates and monetary givebacks, I call them kickbacks, to their own manufacturing companies. With a deal like that, it's impossible for our manufacturers to be on an even playing field and to compete or to stay in business. This is the heart of our trade inequity. Free trade, fair trade, humbug doesn't go to the center of the issue. It seems that lately many have been confusing this bill with legislation that promotes a value-added tax when in fact the Border Tax Equity Act seems to level the playing field for U.S. producers of goods and services. When are we going to give a break to the manufacturers, both large and small, in the United States of America? When are we going to stop saying that free trade is the panacea to creating jobs in the United States? Take a look at what NAFTA did to this country. Take a look at how many jobs we lost, not only in the United States, but in Mexico. It is a disaster. The border tax equity neither imposes a value-added tax nor advocates for the imposition of one. I repeat, it does not impose a value-added tax. Walter Jones and I introduced this legislation to encourage U.S. job creation and economic growth. That's at the center of recovery. Countering foreign border-adjusted tax export subsidies and trade barriers is a must if America is going to kickstart manufacturing job creation and double our exports in the next 5 years. I also hope that this bill would shed light on our need to counter foreign border-adjusted tax schemes that encourage offshoring of production of U.S. goods and services. Here's a perfect example. The rising export subsidies and trade barriers of foreign border-adjusted taxes are a key contributor to the loss of 5.7 million manufacturing jobs in the last decade. It's a prime reason why U.S. industrial output is less today than it was 10 years ago, despite an increase of global gross domestic product of 50%. Foreign border-adjusted tax schemes are designed to make U.S.-produced goods and services less competitive by making exports to the United States cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. So it can build more Walmarts, and put more people out of jail in the United States of America. That is a fact, not fiction.
Time has expired.
So, Mr. Speaker, I ask that we get the facts
Gentleman's
on
time
what
has
we're
expired.
talking about, and I yield back.